60 men were killed in the worst special operations disaster in modern history.
Residents of Coronado, California were shocked by the brutal murder of Lauren Reece and her 3-year-old daughter.
Navy SEAL Lieutenant Commander James Reece survived the ambush but is under investigation.
Welcome to the Terminal List podcast, an Ironclad original series presented by KC Cattle Company. I'm Jack Carr, author and creator of the Terminal List. On each episode, we break down a different episode of the Amazon Prime video series starring Chris Pratt. On today's episode, we're talking about episode 7, Extinction. Joining me is, of course, Jared Shaw, without whom this would not be a production right now. He handed the book to Chris Pratt back in 2017 before it hit shelves, and that is why we're on this podcast today, why this whole team got put together, and why the Amazon Prime video series exists. So thank you so much, Jared. Oh, man, incredible. And showrunner David DiGilio. And I don't know if we talked about this on another podcast, but maybe people are just joining us for this one. But can you give a little rundown about what a showrunner is and what a showrunner does? Because from the outside, you know what a director is. You kind of understand producers, and then you see all these other things like co-producer and this and that. But you kind of have a general understanding of that. But showrunner, because that was something that was new to me as I started down this path.
Yeah, totally. It's a fascinating term, and I'm happy that it's becoming more and more part of today's lexicon. Mm-hmm. The showrunner is in effect the kind of player manager of TV. So you're on the field as a writer, as a producer, but you have to lead right brain, left brain style, both the creative and the production aspect of the show. So in features, if you're making a movie, it's the director who's doing both of those things. In TV, because you have so many scripts and so much story, it falls on the writer. And so I kind of, as the showrunner, have to really coordinate with this entire team. And we have this awesome team at the top, including the guys here with us, but of course, Chris Pratt, Antoine Fuqua, excellent EPs with Daniel Shattuck, John Schumacher, really an incredible group of producers, Max Adams, who was with us every step of the way. But the showrunner is the person who stays with the show from the very first pitch of the pilot script through to the completion, delivery, and marketing and publicity of the show. And it's a wild job. I recommend it for only the masochists out there. You gotta want pain. It's a lot of 100-hour weeks, but it's a blast because you're a writer, you're a filmmaker, and you're a leader. And if you really like those different aspects of the creative process and the collaboration, it's an awesome job. But it's maybe like the most multitasking job in the civilian workforce. Let's say that.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating because you certainly do all those things exceptionally well, and the leadership part is really what has stood out to me through every interaction. Seeing you on set, knowing you beforehand as we put these things together, running the writer, like all those things that you did, and also knowing that people have lives over these a couple of years, and some of them come in just for the production side of it, and then some people are here just for certain parts. But you're there through everything. And you're leading all of those different groups of people who also have lives and things happening during that time frame. And it's, I can't imagine this being in anybody else's hands. So thank you for crushing this.
Thank you again. And this is a really special situation. I'm so happy to be doing these podcasts with you and with Jared, because it's rare that a showrunner has a godfather like you, Jack, who's been with me really through all those steps. So I always have that ability to bounce what's coming at me off of you. But then also when Jared, you've been with this from the beginning, there were times where we were kind of communicating through third parties, but the moment that we got to start to work together, I saw, the same type of thing in you, and really appreciate seeing that. It takes somebody who really cares about the product and cares about the people who are making the product, I think, to do the job the right way. And that's something that I really appreciate with this group. So thank you guys.
Yeah, no, and
you can tell. Yeah, go ahead, Jack.
absolutely. Jack, you hit on it, the leadership aspect of that. And we come from a community where leadership is such a big deal. And Dave, I've thanked you for that leadership a few times, and I still don't feel like it's enough, because I got to see that leadership firsthand. And like I said, in the community we come from, I've been able to have that, but to see the way that you managed every aspect of this production down to the personal lives, like Jack was saying, man, there's so much in that. And my level of respect for you was high, but really grew seeing that and how you handled it, and Jack, you're always so kind to say this project wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for me. And I always got to say, like, it wouldn't have happened if it wouldn't have been for you and the man you were in 2013 and the way you treated me, the book that you wrote, and then people like Dave, stepping up and making it happen. So it's just truly a blessing all the way around to be a part and work with you fellas on it.
Yeah,
man. Yeah,
big
hopefully,
time.
hopefully
man.
we keep it going.
Yes,
and for
let's
those
go.
just joining
Let's
us,
go.
if you're just joining this episode and for the first time, and Jared looks familiar, that's because he plays Boozer on the show and is also a technical advisor and a producer and a whole lot more that doesn't follow after his name officially, but he has done so much and put so much of his time, energy, and effort into this thing. And this whole team, like, it was personal for everybody.
Yeah,
like, it wasn't just
big time.
just a job for anybody coming on this set. And I include that entire cast and crew. At least that's what it felt like to me. It was personal to everybody in some way, shape, or form. And that made it all so special. This one, 107, Extinction. We have a lot. I mean, there's something I love about every single one, but I don't know. This one might have more of my favorites if I was to add them all up. I'm not sure. I'd have to go through and do little tick marks. But this one, episode 7, second to last episode, coming into that home stretch, sprinting towards that finale. This one, it certainly has, I think, the largest number of memorable lines that really stand out. There's quite a few in here.
Yes.
From I Am Justice, Stay Off My List, of course, that's on all the trailers, but David or Goliath is in here.
Yeah.
There's so many great lines in here. But let's kick this thing off. So we have our director, Fred, it's his second time.
Yes. Fred's
now
back.
directing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Fred is back.
Toy back in the saddle. Incredible partner for this show. Again, those who heard us in 104, Fred has directed on some of the biggest shows imaginable. He's a key player specifically on The Boys, another Amazon family show there. Not that it's a family show, but in the Amazon family. And we were so stoked to get a guy like Fred, because Fred's not just an awesome director, he's an incredible producer. So Fred really helped us navigate what is maybe the trickiest moment as you get through the season. We talked about how big 106 was, but when you get into 107 and 108, you're in your final run. You're always, any show is going to be, really careful on the financial side at this point, but you want the biggest, baddest product you can possibly put on screen. And a little note to those out there who may be listening, who want to end up in a writer's room one day. If you find yourself in a writer's room, the episode that you actually want to write, it's not the pilot and it's not the finale. It's the penultimate episode. That's the one to go for. And we were really lucky to put Brooke Roberts into this slot. She's one of our veterans turned writers. She's an incredible writer. We got her, actually, she had been kind of living in the broadcast world, which is, kind of broadcast TV world. I think living in the kind of CSIs and NCISs of the world. But she really wanted to do something darker. She has an NSA background, language background, really fascinating. Her father, I think, was also served, and her grandfather, so multi-generational. And she was the one who had the idea to tell a kind of non-linear story for this penultimate episode. which I thought was so cool because we're dealing with a character who's, got conflation, timelines are tripping up on each other, and how cool to introduce a nonlinear structure in this episode. So we start at that point of Reece coming back to his house, and he has that memory of that first moment that he and Lauren walked in and had this house as their own. And then he's pulled out of that by this watch. And this thematic of time is a big theme in this episode. And then that pulls us back to the beginning of this day, and off we go. But I loved what Brooke brought to the table with this notion of, hey man, we're dealing with a character who is struggling right now with the brain tumor. Really struggling. He's got something that's tamping down the physical symptoms. And it's important for people. I've noticed some fans aren't quite hearing everything that the doctor's telling them in 104, right? That this tumor is treatable if you stop down for 6 to 9 months, right? But he does have these pills to treat the symptoms. And that's all he's treating, right? That's all he's treating, those kind of physical symptoms. But mentally and emotionally, this is Reece in a tough place, right? And our boy Chris, this is an incredible episode for him. Mm-hmm. Absolutely incredible.
It is. This one grabs and doesn't let go, and you have opening those doors into the tunnels again, and there's Jared yelling on the I mean, awesome. And I love, by the way, if you go to Amazon and you go down and hit those, like all the people, then you have your little circle, and it's like Chris Pratt, Constance Wu, and you scroll along, bam. There's Jared Shaw right there. He has his own little circle. It's awesome. I love it. I did it last night. I went down there just to go find you. It was awesome.
Nice.
Yeah,
I did it right away. I did it like the first day, but I watched it 2 again last night. Both of these last 2 episodes again last night to kind of refresh everything before we jumped on today. And I did it again. I'm like, oh man, it's so awesome. Wow. And I think they grabbed a photo of you from the premiere. I think they put a photo up from the premiere. I don't think it was like that the first time I looked. It was. I think they had the one that's like your headshot was up there, I think, and then now it's from the premiere. The background it says like it's a blue background.
Gotcha.
That's cool.
I need to check it out. Last time I saw it, it was the headshot. So maybe they did change it. Interesting. That's interesting.
It looks good. Good. But yeah, so we're in the house, and Reece is opening the doors and the tunnels. I mean, I think the way that the writers and you guys put this thing together was just, it's next level. This thing is next level. This really like makes our show stand out from anything else out there. I mean, all the way through, but this is kind of where it all comes together. And like, this is a different show. I mean, you know that all the way along, but the whole thing, there's no stops. It's awesome. And I love Chris in this one. And I love, you see some of that likable, because you're in this episode also, you might need to forgive him for a little something.
You might have to. There's a big, book,
So in the book, I can leave it a little bit and leave it up to people's imaginations a little bit, but and we do that here as well with Taylor as Ben Edwards doing some of that dirty work. But I love when they're going through that house and Lauren's like, I'm pregnant. And he's like, from that kiss just there?
Yeah.
I mean, it's fantastic.
That's
like to
Chris on the day right there. That's Chris on the day.
It was on the day?
Yeah, that's on the day, dude. It's so, I mean, and that's the thing, again, you have Chris, you have Riley, right? You have these movie stars who are stepping into Cinevision, and they're so natural in the moment. And everything that I find with like the next level actors is truly, it's so genuine. That's the thing. And it comes out of a genuine place of real care and love and support for each other as an ensemble. And you can carry that into these scenes. And so you really see this connection between them in that moment.
Yeah.
And
fantastic.
Then, it kind of starts you down the rabbit hole, right? Because we're doing all kinds of tricks in the camera with this. This was one that was really cool. And a big hat tip here to Dan Shattuck, who produced this episode. He worked really hard on this sequence with Fred Toy, because we were also filming the finale as this is being filmed. It was that crazy at this point. And they had this thing worked out where they removed the wall between the bathroom in the set, in the closet in the set. And so Lauren is able to kind of disappear off screen, move through the set, and then come back out fully changed into a new wardrobe in a different section of memory. He's just jumped. His mind has jumped, right? And then she disappears and the rain starts outside. And that rain, which we talked about, Antoine brought that rain into the Starling conflation. Wow. Just awesome. At that point, and then we have Ruth's score slowing down.
Oh yeah, the score, the music. I was thinking about that as I was watching last night, like how different it would be if maybe somebody else scored it or if it wasn't quite right. But this is just, I mean, you're right there with it. It's insane.
Yeah, we're working on getting a soundtrack out. The fans should know that. I think.
Oh, nice.
It would. The response to the music has been really incredible online, and I'm really, really excited about it.
Yeah, that is awesome.
Yeah, I sent you all that text the other day. Remember the song at the end? There's people are creating entire videos with that song and the beginning song, Trigger. You know, they're the first and the last song. People are creating entire songs and or videos, and you know, and it's cool to. I mean, hundreds of thousands of people have viewed these videos that they're using the song and then they're putting their spin on whatever they want to do in the video, and that to me was a bit of an eye-opening deal, seeing just kind of the fan reactions with Dave, like you said, just the music, you know, and how that's resonating with people. Just really, really cool to see.
Yeah, and big again hat tip, you know, on not just the score with Ruth Barrett, but the needle drop selection. That's Kevin Edelman, our music supervisor. That's the role who brings that ingredient into the mix. The process there, I can't remember if we touched upon it, but it's really a cool process where he will send these different ideas to the editor. And actually, he'll send it first as like a Dropbox link with, let's say, 15 choices. And I'll listen to those, or if it's Antoine's episode, Antoine will listen to those. And then we'll select maybe 4 choices, and we'll send those to the editors, and the editors will cut those in. And then you get those clips back with the 4 choices laid in, and you get to see how the song really marries to the picture. And that, you know, this is one for episode 8, but certainly that final song was a big topic, and I guess we'll touch upon that when we get there. But the music again in this show, I think because one, it's true to the character. We have that wonderful outlaw country influence in our needle drops, which I love. And then we have other sounds, bin sound, etc. But then I think what's connecting with people on Ruth's score is it's very psychological. It's a very psychological sound. It's got multiple layers. And she, with this kind of synth percussion work that she does, she gets into something really primal, really primal. And so whether it's the big set pieces where Reece is, you know, sending Captain Howard in with a vest, right? Whether it's a big set piece like that, or it's this emotional moment of moving through the memories you have in your old house of the wife and child that you lost. She just takes you into Reece's head in a way that few composers can do.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. And is this episode, it's not the highest body count, but is it the highest body count?
Oh, I think it's the most names on the list.
Most names on the list. Yeah, which is wonderful.
Yeah, and it's
now it's time to start racking them up, start stacking them.
You said
so
that.
You know I like that.
Yeah, you said that as we finished 6. It's so true, you know, because 6 we went through that. It's the one episode where you can't kill anyone, but then that means in 7. It's the Warcom
make up for
trio.
lost time. Yeah. Yeah, and that's where we go right next. Then we go to the Warcom trio in that scene in Admiral Pillar's office, and Cox is in there, and Lamont. Everybody does such a great, and those guys are incredible together. I mean,
Great.
Every single one of them knocks it out of the park.
They are great.
Yeah. And Howard, I love Howard. For people who have seen, what's this one in Pennsylvania where he plays the
Banshee?
Yes, Banshee. Gosh, he's so great.
Yeah.
When I saw that he was in this, I was so fired up. I was like, no way, it's the guy from Banshee.
Yeah.
And I think I mentioned that fight scene. We talked about that fight scene in Banshee.
You sent me early on.
Very early, yeah.
Early on, you said, this is one of the best fight scenes I've seen on TV.
Yeah.
Can this be the bar? That's kind of what you said. Can this be the bar that we have to pass?
Like, I want people, not as far as like technicality, but as far as like people were talking about this the next day.
Yep.
And I remember from the very beginning, I was like, we need something in every episode that people are going to talk about on the modern day version of the water cooler, which is social media, the next day, and saying, I cannot believe that they did this. And that's what I sent you over as one of those examples, is that fight scene. Because people in Banshee were talking about that the next day.
That's
that
exactly
fight scene
right.
through the car, through the windows, up and around, all around this one vehicle, which is pretty...
It's amazing. And that show, I've talked to people who worked on that show. I think actually Gwen Shavelski, our post-producer, had worked on that show. Pretty low budget for what they pulled off. And it's remarkable. And it's something that audiences don't often take into account. But when you're inside the business and you see something like that and get a sense of the numbers and days that they had to film it, just remarkable. And we touched on that with 105, like all of the stuff that we were able to pull off in that one day downtown. That's another level. And I love the feature side. I love it. But certainly the TV side, when you have an incredible crew and cast just, redlined and ready, you get some awesome stuff.
No, man, it's incredible. Gosh, and there's so much in this thing. I don't even... those guys are incredible together. Those three, of course, Hartley then flying in, labeling James Reece a domestic terrorist. We have that in there. We get the FBI field office. Everybody gets screen time in here. Everybody's knocking it out of the park in every single episode. Admiral Pillar, that's more of a Langley question. I love that. Little hints,
Yeah.
We're giving little hints.
Hints.
For people who haven't read the book, some people are shocked about how we end up in 8, even with these little hints along the way.
Yeah, but, we have these really specific breadcrumbs, and that one in particular is a big deal. And the Hartley storyline's a really interesting one here in 7, right? Mm-hmm. We have this scene that's almost right out of the book in terms of the Hartley press conference, labeling Reece this domestic terrorist. But in the series, we don't yet know where she lies. Yeah. And this is going to be the moment that we reveal her over the course of this episode. And that was one of the trickiest, I think, kind of needles to thread in the writing process. I think both Gene and Taylor do an incredible job of playing the gray areas with their characters. And so you really, if you don't know the books, you are in the place of wondering, right? Wonder and intrigue are pulling you forward with those characters.
Yeah. And this time we have different characters kind of do different things, but they're the same things as in the book or similar to the book, as far as the S-vest, the suicide vest walking in. So different character, but it's for people. So I love that we're playing with conflation with people who have read the book also and now seeing the show. And now, was somebody different in the book? Hold on, let me go back and check. So I think that is all fantastic how all that how all that plays out, and a little nods to the book and to the
100%. We knew for sure that the S-vest kill was going in the show, but it became a big question of how it was going to happen. It was, I think, as we were breaking the season arc, maybe the second time, because we broke it multiple times, where we realized, oh wait, here we go, because we knew Tedesco was going to end up part of this Horn crazy episode 5. And so that's Tedesco's death from the book. And what we got really excited about was, can we use it as a way to break down Pillar's defenses in what you think, especially, again, if you haven't read the book, like you get to the top of this episode and you see that Warcom trio in there, Nick Chinland, Matty Roush, LaMonica Garrett, having that discussion about tactical retrograde. I'm not moving to Cameroon for James fucking Reece. Like
so great.
All that stuff, right? And I love Nick. I mean, this is why you have Nick in this role, is you just know he has that pride, that admiral's pride, right? And this is from the book. You have the I love me wall. We get to feature
interesting
it
photos
in this
on
episode.
that wall.
Yeah. Some great photos on there. But you have a guy. Yeah. It's just, you have a guy, and you see it in that first scene, who is making the gravest mistake, which is to underestimate Reece. And Reece gets that idea to use one of the conspirators to kill another. And then what I really enjoy about that kind of storyline of the S-Fest is that moment with the two of them in the Ben's safe house. Mm-hmm. And you have that real, like, brother to brother discussion. Another Easter egg as well on the Ben side, right? They brought me into this, right? That's what Taylor's line in that scene. And Reece is working the sewing machine. This is a real thing, right? The SEALs know how to freaking repair what they have to repair. Like,
especially back in the day, he's a little older. So back in the day, you had to, as we went along, you got a lot better gear, but back in the day, you had to make it. And typically it's your parachute rigger who is the guy that really knows what they're doing, and they made a bunch of gear. So I had Reece know how to use a sewing machine.
I thought it was wicked.
Book. Yeah,
I think it's so wicked. So we kept that detail. Some people hit on us for that, which I thought was crazy. It's
really? I didn't see that.
It's authenticity. It's authentic. But that moment at the end of the scene where he stands up and puts it on. And I think for a lot of the audience, they're going, wait a second.
Is he going to go kill these guys?
Is this how he's going to take them out?
Interesting.
Yeah. And just to have that little misdirect in about a third of the way into the episode, it was one of those moments where I go, oh, okay, this episode, this is special. This is why you want to write the penultimate episode. All of these storylines that you've been setting up, they actually really all come together in the second to last episode, and you tie off a bunch of them in that episode and then leave the big dogs for the finale. But that's why you look at all your favorite shows, and it's a pattern that'll fit. The second to last episode is usually awesome for that reason.
Yeah. And even that scene, Dave, you're talking about in Ben's safe house, when Reece is putting on the S-Vest and, trying it on, and Ben even looks at him and is like, brother, you sure you want to do this? And it really gets the audience thinking, like you said, Dave, like, okay, what's about, is he about to go clack himself off? Is this, is he prepping for the finale? And they know that the 8th episode is the last one, and they're like, man, this can't be how this thing ends. If they haven't read the book, they have no idea, so that was just a great, just emotionally, it kind of rocks you, kind of makes you, but then you see Ben's heart in that as well. Again, you see Ben's heart and Ben's love for his brother, and that's displayed through the entire show, but you see it again in that moment, and once again, Taylor just crushes it as usual.
Yeah. Yeah. Jared, were you there on set that day making the S-Vest? And was Ray there? How did that work?
Yeah, we were, and that was once again Gary, constructing that, and then we
Gary Tours.
Yep, Gary Tours.
Stream props.
Yeah,
nice.
As usual, just killing it. But constructing it, working with him on it, just kind of getting the placement of everything correct, the blasting caps correct, and just setting it up and just having it in a way that the operators will look at that without it having, the claymores in there and be like, oh, okay, I see that this is an S-Fest, something's going on. But the normal person kind of look at it and it just kind of looks like a bundle of just straps and wires and everything, and they can figure it out and put it together. But once you see it when it's put together, you're like, oh, this is done right. This is done well.
Yeah, like all the explosive stuff in the books. Like we got close.
Yeah.
You don't exactly, if you don't know exactly, but that's a real thing. You guys, an amazing job. I love that we show things so close in this.
This was a big episode. Yeah, for authenticity influencing creative. And later in the process too. The S-Vest was not originally written that way. Jared, I can't remember, I think it was you who brought up the notion, or Ray, but the notion of using the claymores as the explosive on the S-Vest. That came from you guys. Yeah. And then the biggest one is in, not to jump ahead, but I think it's on topic here, is the Cox kill.
I was going to get to that, to Jared's part in that. Yeah, it was definitely a little different. But before we get to that, getting Cox, he's in the bar. I pictured it as a certain seal bar in Coronado. We put a different one than I pictured in my head outside. So we throw Coronado Brewing Company up there, which is more of a family-friendly establishment, going back to the family friendliness. But I love that we put Coronado Brewing Company in there. In real life, it's a different, darker type of a bar, not quite as family-friendly, perhaps, but where team guys go. And out into that parking lot, and he's watching UFC on the screen. I love that. The other screen has a little update on James Reece. Yeah. And then into the parking lot. And even before we get to what happens to Cox, Jared, this one, trying to figure out how exactly they're going to go about this and how Reece is going to take Cox down here. What was the backstory on that one, on how that fight scene evolved? Have you tried Kansas City Cattle Company? If not, why not? Get after it. Here we go. Kansas City Cattle Company. That's kccattlecompany.com. Check them out. Veteran owned and operated. Look at this right here. They have Wagyu beef flat iron steak. This is delicious. One of my favorites. All sorts of steaks. Don't have the fillets out here because I ate them all. Same thing with the tomahawks, which are incredible. And what else do we have? Wagyu beef bavette. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but the bavette, B-A-V-E-T-T-E steak. Highly recommended. Absolutely love this cut right here. If you haven't heard of this cut, go to that website, kccattlecompany.com. Check it out. And what is this one here? This is the Wagyu beef Kansas City strip steak, also a favorite. And then the kids love burgers made with this stuff. So this is the Wagyu beef right here. Amazing burgers with this. All sorts of stuff on that side. Here we go. Beef chorizo right here. But go check them out for sure. Veteran owned and operated again. And that is kccattlecompany.com/Jack Carr and use code JackCarr15. That's JackCarr 15. Check them out for sure. Veteran owned and operated. Love these guys. Awesome stuff. In fact, I am going to go fire up the smoker right now and throw something on. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, well, that's, what we had talked about is look at Cox, LaMonica Garrett. He's every bit of 6'4" and 240 pounds with no fat on him whatsoever.
My God, it's a beast.
About as intimidating of a human as you're going to get, And so, Jack, we have to fight to win. And so when Reece goes to fight, not only an adversary that big, but a trained adversary, he's got to go with holding all four aces, to win this one. And so that was really what we talked out amongst all of us, like, okay, how is this going to be done? And it also had to follow the theme of authenticity. It's not going to be a super smooth, just pretty fight. One guy throws, one guy blocks, no, it's a fight. It is a fight to win. And so that's what we tried to capture. And once again, having Chris Romrell there and Keith Willard, was great, but having Romrell there to he took some shots in that one. I mean, he's the one that there's a triangle choke that Reece throws on Cox, and then Cox lifts him up and slams him, which is what you would do if you're in a street fight and you get a triangle choke thrown on you. You're going to slam the guy. And Dave, remember we talked about it on the day, and Romero was like, yeah, we were actually done, I think. And Dave, you were like, maybe we go try to get, what do you think? Could we try to get that? And Romero was like, yeah, I'll do it. I'll do it. And so went out there, and man, he took a slam, and it came out good because it looks real.
Yeah.
It just looks like a scrap that would be in a parking lot, which then snaps his arm. And then we got to the point, Dave, of like, okay, now we got to transport this 6'4", 240 human pound being. We're not just Reece isn't going to knock him out, and he's going to stay knocked out for 20 minutes. So that's where, the whole shot came in to sedate him and put him under. Yep, exactly.
And the arm break, the arm bar into the arm break, that's another wonderful example of our departments working together and improvising. It's actually really expensive and difficult to get a believable arm break on screen. And I think this is another one where we had special effects, props, and wardrobe all working together, of course, along with stunts, to make that happen. And dude, that thing feels very real.
Yeah. Even last night I was watching, I was like, oh.
Yep.
Yeah.
Same.
And in LaMonica, the moment, actually, this is an interesting story, I think, for both this role and then also for Matt Roush, who plays Howard. I can't remember if it's the same with LaMonica, but I know with Roush, Roush had auditioned for the role of Holder. And we had a different look in mind for that role. And we saw in his audition, he did if you remember in 102, the final scene, the final interrogation of Holder in 102, that was the audition piece for the Holder character. And Roush's breath work in the scene was so, like, it just jumped out. It was so real. And we were thinking of Howard in this scene at the end of 7. And so oftentimes what informs casting is moments like that you just have as markers, foundational moments. And for the character of Cox, this fight in the parking lot, we wanted it to be this battle between giants. And so LaMonica came in, he crushed his audition. I remember, but the thing we were thinking about is these two giants battling out in this Coronado parking lot, that it's just something you have to see. You want to see it. And it's a very interesting thing when you're putting this together, because there's a long road to get there. So you have to see pieces that will fit and work on the rest of that road. But so much is often the final destination of where a character is going to land. And an actor will just capture what you have in your head when you're writing it or reading it or talking about it with the producers. And that happened with both of these actors. And also, I would say, with Nick Chinland, in terms of what we needed in this episode.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, man. These guys crushed. Even before, I forget, it becomes before this or not, but when Matt Roush, when Howard gets home, and it's just so awkward. Like, as a viewer, you're just like watching him go into his family's house and pop his glasses down, and you're kind of like squirming almost, because it's just so awkward of an interaction with his son and his wife, and then they're upstairs, and it's like you can totally imagine a conversation exactly like that happening, and then FBI's at the door, and we think, because we've just come from another scene with the FBI field office, that it's the FBI people, and then head comes up, and there's Taylor Kitsch right there. There's Ben Edwards going somewhere.
Love that moment.
It's so good. And now we leave it up to the viewer to figure, kind of like we leave that up to them, to how he goes about getting them to this next scene, which is similar to what I do in the book there. But then we go to this beach scene, and it was different, and Jared saved the day again. and came up with this idea, this teamwork. Like, I remember this whole process, Jared, and you like wouldn't let this thing go. And I'm so glad you wouldn't. You were just tenacious about it. And there was something that wasn't ringing true to you about the first way it was written.
It was written. It was
both
written that he
seals
was going to be buried, neck deep in the sand, and the tide was going to come up. That's what, and it was, I believe, an idea that Max had with Brooke, and so it kind of came from that in the writer's room. And then we got to it. And Jared, do you remember that meeting where it had all these, department heads there in this prep meeting, and our visual effects supervisor played a clip from, I think, Creepshow, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh,
And it just looked
from back in the day. Creepshow back in the day.
Ted Danson who was buried. It was somebody famous who was buried neck deep in the sand.
Like in the 80s, right?
Creepshow. He's like, okay, so I found an example of this, and he puts it up. You're all sitting around a big conference table. He puts it up, plays it, and we're like, well, that sucks. What are we gonna do? And that's when Jared pitched this idea, and boom.
Yeah, and that's what, talking about watching that, Ted Danson or whoever it was, that version of it, I kind of had in my mind. Ray and I talked a little bit, Dave, I think we'd even talked about it a little bit prior to that, but yeah, it never felt right. It never felt right from beginning to end in that scene. I felt like we could do something more intimate to the teams and the brotherhood, and really get across how deep of a hurt that Reece felt towards Cox, and I didn't feel like we were capturing that. And, and then we watched that video with how it was done in the Creepshow. And that's when I respectfully said, like, guys, look at what we're doing right now. We're watching a video of it being done on another show.
And it was terrible.
We can't, and it was terrible. But we're more creative than this. Come on, we can
beat this.
We can beat this. And Dave, I remember saying, I just raised my hand and I said, Dave, can I throw a monkey wrench in this whole thing? And you said, absolutely. Yep. Jared, what are you thinking? And that's when we started talking about it, and pulling something from the brotherhood, which is the training where we solidify that camaraderie and that bond between us, and that training really forges that, and then combat solidifies it. But in that training, that's where it begins. That brotherhood really begins, and so that's where the idea of like, hey, that log, when you're carrying that log, you're doing it with your team. You have your team there. And so that moment, what was cool also was how much Chris understood it and LaMonica understood it, and being on the beach. And I remember LaMonica, Dave, when we were explaining it to him, he looked at me and he said, Jared, Cox needs to have that moment of accountability. Yes. He needs to have that moment when Reece is talking to him and telling him, like, where's your team, Bill? You left your team, or you killed your team. And Cox just kind of nods. He doesn't yell. He doesn't scream. None of that. He just owns it. Yeah. And man, it was so powerful, so powerful. And I've had quite a few people reach out about that scene. The operators were like, man, that was heavy. There was some emotion with that one. And so, I that one was cool. That one came out well, and it's just different. It's not something that's ever been seen before, and it'll be hard to replicate.
No, and it's so character driven, which is what I love. And not only do we get that incredible scene, but then out of the notion of the log and log PT, that also gave us the transition, if you remember at the beginning of the episode, as we jump back in time. We come down off the sky and find the Buds candidates doing log PT, doing exactly what you said, Jared. And again, Jack, this is what we always talk about, this visual storytelling medium, right? You just have to see them suffering together to know that this episode is going to be about this notion of brotherhood, those who live it and those who betrayed it. And I really love one other moment to point out in LaMonica's performance, because I think what you just brought up there, Jared, that kind of notion of accountability, self-acceptance, it, like, the setup for that moment is LaMonica at the bar. That is some incredible acting going on as he's getting that drink, looking at the fight. We actually, got a little piece of a fight to license, as a little foreshadowing, but then, seeing the Reece footage, and there's this kind of acceptance that is starting to happen there. And then you hear it in his voice with, well, how's this going to go then? And then he's going to fight, because if he can win that fight, then he deserves to keep fighting, right?
Absolutely.
But he loses, and he wakes up strapped to that log. And that's another one of those scenes you just are so thankful that you're there that day to witness. Two actors at the top of their game, director, cameraman. Oh God, was it who was operating that day? I think it's one of our cameramen. Didn't almost drown, but he was crushed. Evans Brown, our DP, actually ended up operating on this. It's so hard to film out in the surf, and we didn't even have that big a surf that moment. But it takes so much out of the crew, and everybody's out there on that beach putting in the work, and you end up with an awesome scene.
Yeah,
it is. And Chris's voice, the way he says, he's saying, it's almost like, he's unbelievable and he's disappointed, but he yet understands, and he's doing what he's got to do. Like, it's all these things all in like these few sentences that he does, and it's amazing. I was watching it last night. I was just like blown away by
and then when you have Cox say, we do this for 20 years, and at the end all you get is a paddle and whatever, and Reece says, you had the brotherhood. That's what you got, and there's so much power in that, him saying that, and
big time.
Like I said, just that moment when it was taking place, you could feel it from both of them. They were in it, and that's where the operators would see that or did see that. And they were like, yeah, no, these guys understood the moment that was happening. These guys understood what was taking place in that moment, and Dave, once again, just that, all the appreciation to you, and in that room, as you always are, best idea wins, and you just, once again, speaks to your leadership of saying, yeah, let's see what we got here. Let's see if we can make this work. And so I appreciate you willing to take a risk on that and letting that play out.
Oh yeah.
We could have lost the whole show right there with Ted Danson. We'd have people putting memes up on both our show and the Crave show.
This.
Exactly. Now everybody can do it,
Man.
Jeez. But Jared, that was a great save. Thank you. And then you came up with the whole, I remember you texted me and we're talking about it. You're like, how would we strap it and all that? And you came up with all that. How would you keep the weight there and strap it to him and the whole thing? You really worked all that out.
Yeah.
So,
and I
incredible.
Yeah, and I by no means can take full credit for that, nor will I. Ray Mendoza, as usual, was in on that and helping me figure out, how would we strap the hands, strap them, go over the log, over the neck with not enough slack to be able to release either hands or the neck, and just kind of set it up and played with it, and it worked, and it was cool too to jump forward just a little bit when Reece goes to the family and they're sitting in front of the vehicles. Yeah. And if you look, a lot of people won't notice this, but there's another log. Dave, remember we staged another log with a set of straps there to where they saw what just happened to Cox. And if you look over, you'll see another log set up there with the straps to where they see that log and they know what's going to happen if they don't play by the rules, which is
and that is a heavy moment. And, people might not know this, but Renata, who plays Howard's wife, is actually Matt Roush's wife. They're one of those incredibly talented couples Both are amazing actors based out of New York. And early on, I think shooting the pilot, Jared, we knew that we needed to cast Howard's wife. We knew that we had this massive scene that would be coming down the pike, and we needed bonkers emotion coming out of both of them. And I, really like, if you can do it, to actually cast the real thing, right? And when Matt told me that his wife Renata was an actress, I said, all right, you got to get her tape. And we're never going to just say, oh, she's cast. We say, we need to see her tape. She read for the role, but it was immediate. We just all saw, oh yeah, this is going to be great. And what they do on that beach in that moment, along with Connor Sherry, who plays TJ, the son. That's no joke. And Chris. And Chris. And
that's right. Yeah. And having that scene in the beginning also, helps so much now, because now you're going to maybe, if you're, depending on who you are, I think the operators watching are like, yep. But like regular people might have to forgive Reece a little bit. And having that early scene with the joking in there, and then having him walk into the house, and almost every team guy in the world has walked into a new place before and been like, gun safe right here, platoon plaques here, boom. And every team guy wife has been like, garage or whatever, I love that. So it's like, that speaks to everybody who's been in any sort of special operations unit in that. But then we get to this scene, and you're gonna have to maybe forgive Reece a little bit for what he's doing, but it's that revenge without constraint, and we get it. Yeah, we get it. But still, people who haven't read the book don't know.
They don't know
quite yet. Maybe quite haven't put it together. Yeah. What is this thing? What is this thing
that's going on?
That James.
Yeah, I haven't asked
Howard to do.
People who haven't read the book. I've only talked to book fans about this, but I'd be curious to know, at what point do they know that Howard's wearing the vest?
Yeah. Is it right here?
I'm not sure.
Because you got to pay attention. This is a thinking man's show, a thinking person's show.
We said, you
got to pay attention. You can't, people are telling me, sometimes people text me and they're like, oh, I'm going to watch it on my flight from A to Z. No, you're not. I'm like, don't watch it there. Wait till you're in front of the biggest TV you can be in front of. Make sure it's all dark, and watch it with the best sound on the biggest TV. Or they're like, I'm going to watch it on my phone as we're, driving. Nope, do not watch this on your phone. You have to pay attention, and you have to, this is, our viewers are,
they really are
next level, because they got to pay attention.
I love that.
You got to pay attention.
I love it.
Otherwise, you're going to miss some key elements if you're not actively engaged. You can't do this at the same time you're scrolling on something else. You have to be there. To put the phone away, you got to be watching, and boom, get into it.
I think it's another part of the operator culture that came into the show, which is oftentimes in Hollywood, we will spell everything out for the audience. It will often be a big fear that happens, which is, if the audience doesn't know immediately what something is, they'll disengage. But this was something that came, Max was really big on this, but I also know, Jared, we've talked about it, Jack, we've talked about it, which is, actually, the audience is smart. And if they're engaged,
respect them.
They'll go find the answer. So you don't have to spell out what QRF is. They can look it up.
That's right.
Right? Or the context.
You're bright enough to figure this out via the context. The same thing in publishing. That's it's same thing in publishing. But you got to respect your readers, respect your audience, and if you do spell it out, it's almost it's almost disrespecting their level of intellect or their ability to think things through or observe or enjoy the show.
Notion of mutual respect, which is so big in the community, I think became kind of part of our ethos as well, not just in terms of how we worked on set, but when we would get to big questions. Now, you can't really have confusion, right? Confusion and overt confusion can be tricky, but complexity with context, that's a very cool recipe.
Yeah.
Because that's pulling you.
Sure.
and pulling you forward, and you want to learn the thing that you might not know.
Yeah.
Yeah, Memento, Usual Suspect. I mean, some
Yes.
great films out there. You know, they require a bit of work, and then a
Yes.
rewatch.
That's what I was
cases.
going to say. I think that's why we have our Terminalist has such high rewatch numbers.
Yeah.
I think it's because people binge it right in the beginning, and I was guilty of it. Binged it, having seen it as many times as we have. Once it came out, I binged it, but then I went back and rewatched it, and I have so many people telling me that, and I believe the numbers from what I hear reflect that as well. Is the rewatch is high on this one for that reason. People are going back to find new things, and I'm finding new things in it. When I go back
I know. I'm finding new things.
Which is
From this
crazy.
podcast, I'll go back and watch some things and learn new things. I love that part of it. It's so much fun. And in this scene in particular, do you guys remember, was this hard for Chris to do, just personally? I mean, dragging a kid towards the water to drown him and put his parents in a position to save their only child, and then do what he needs to do, strap on an S-vest and go to, like, was that hard personally for him to do? Because I wasn't there this day.
Yeah, I think there was a couple scenes in this entire filming process that were hard for Chris, and this was one of them. That we ended up, this one and another one for sure, we ended up just kind of hanging out for a bit afterwards in his trailer and just kind of talking, because Chris, we know Chris is a good-hearted, genuine, humble dude. And so he has to go to a different place, and the guy loves kids. He has 3 kids now of his own. He's just a good-hearted man. And so he had to go to a different place to be in the mindset and the emotional space for this role, or for this scene, and so Jack, he had to decompress from this one a little bit before he went home and kind of get himself out of it. It took a bit of an emotional toll.
Takes a toll, and he's thinking, it's so again, the thing that is remarkable is having to be the number one, and he's an EP. So as he's going through all of that, laying down this incredible performance and paying the price for it, because it does, as Jared says, does stay with you. He's then got to put on his producer hat and look at photos for the finale and the Hartley estate. And this is what we're picking. We think it's going to work. What are you thinking? It's just so, like, it asks a lot. But, again, this one, for me, between that scene, those scenes in the house with the conflation run, I think this is the one, when we say this is a Chris Pratt you've never seen, this is that episode in a big way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I feel
no doubt about
I feel like he shifted a bit in this one. Reece did, and we've seen everything he's done. Sicario Raid, which obviously was a dark one, and he went heavy on that one. But I feel like this episode there was even more of a shift in Reece, and kind of the turn he had to make to go to this level, grabbing the kid, pulling him. And I had a friend of mine reach out. We talk about people not sure if they want to be on Reece's side during this part. I had a friend of mine that's got a couple kids, and she was, this scene bothered her. This, kind of against Reece in a way. She was more Team Howard during that scene when they're on the beach, and that's, Dave, I think that's brilliant in how that was done and written to, kind of get that exact reaction from people. Jack, like you said, the operators are like, yeah, well, you messed with the wrong dude. Sorry, and there's not a whole lot of forgiveness. Whereas some other people, civilians or just people in general, are like, well, this one kind of hurts me. I don't know that I can get behind this. I don't know that I'm okay with this, and I think that is exactly, Dave, what you were looking to accomplish storyline with this. And I think you nailed it.
100%. And then, this is something from the book. He's confronted multiple times in the book with these moments of, will I have to do this? Is the question mark. And we thought about, is there a scene that can capture those moments? The one of the great moments is the road stop when he's with Liz in the book. And and this cop has come up, you know, and you played out in his head, Jack. You played out in his head, and so we thought about this in the room of how can we have that moment where it plays out on screen. And I think the real question that people should take away from it or debate is, would he have gone through with it? Right? That's the great question. And these are the things that when you have a character with revenge without constraint, that are real questions that you ask. But there's another, you know, take on it, which is, well, he did exactly what he had to do to get Howard to say yes. Right? Yep. And Howard says yes. And whew,
imagine though, you know, I thought about this as I think about this as I write all the books, because it's you know, it's very, I shouldn't say easy, I hate the word, but to make it comfortable for everyone. Make it how I'm going to make this comfortable to most people, and to do those things. And then that's a book that you've already read 100 times. But it's not real, and you don't remember it because it blends into all these other ones. But you have something like this, what you accomplished by showing this scene and making us question and having some people be uncomfortable with it. Well, that's life, and that's memorable as well. So you're making people uncomfortable. And I say that at the beginning of the latest book in the preface. I say something along the lines of, you know, James Reece makes some people uncomfortable. And this is one of those moments. One of those scenes.
No, it's
cool. And you guys got it. And there's an interaction there after this with Ben and James Reece, and going home. What? Gotta see him, you know? And then here we go. We're back. And in the house.
And then, you know, in between we've got this storyline, which I think is really cool in terms of the other side of vengeance, right? You have accountability and this question of justice. And you have these two characters, Tony Leung and Katie Beranek, who are now coming together, trying to join forces because they realize, well, wait, Reece is not the only bad guy here, right? Katie has known this for a while, but Tony now figures this out in this episode. And what does he do? He realizes, well, Katie's story might become the only way to pull Reece back. If you can get that out, get that thing published, make a scene and a sensation out of this, because it would be, I mean, let's be honest, whoa, right? And then maybe you take these people off the table, you take them off the table before Reece does. And so that chess game that's going on between them in the FBI field office during this, I love watching those two work together. Mm-hmm. And that you mentioned that David versus Goliath, which one's Reece line. That scene is one of my favorite scenes in the whole season, because Constance and JD, they're just in it. And Fred is really a wonderful director for actors. He really lets them live in it, kind of find the comfort zone, but also then just push them. And that scene is excellent.
So good.
Oh no, it's great. Which one is Reece, David or Goliath?
Yeah.
Still working that out.
Yeah.
You know? I tell you that this has great. And earlier when she's talking to Reece on the phone in the car, and what do they say? She says, "You're not at war, you're at home. There's a difference, Reece." And he says, "Not anymore." I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, this one has some memorable
really
lines. To include another one that's coming up, but we have Howard now pulling into the parking lot once again. Music, pulling into that parking lot, walking in, and I'm thinking of it as I wrote it with another character doing it in the book, but now it's so great. I love all the changes. That's why I think you took this foundation and you made this thing better, and you made it visually. You told the story visually, and I just absolutely love it. And I love him, getting out of that car and then going in, and you have the Admiral's aide right there, and I'll finish this up, and Nick is just does such a great
good.
job of that, being the Admiral. Like he's like, what? Like it's just Howard standing there, and it's his body language of Nick's the Admiral's body language is like, he's like, what, whatever he says, the way he says it is so fantastic. And then the phone ringing and handing over the phone,
you, sir.
having
Oh,
Trader.
God.
It's just Trader on the phone, on the second one, and their little conversation and the way Nick plays that whole thing. Explosion is great, like all of that.
And we have that moment, and this is one of the interesting things is you have a moment where and again, this is spoiler territory, but I think everybody is hopefully listening.
If you're listening to this, you should have watched the show already.
Finale,
You're wrong.
Stop right now, because I'm about to say something that But if that conversation had kept going, if Reece was not in a place where he was given over so fully to vengeance that he has written that Hartley name on the list already, if that conversation had kept going, he would have heard Ben Edwards' name in that call. Right? Yep. He would have. And because he thinks he has his final target, boom, he presses that button. By the way, that's one of the best. We have two of the best inserts in the show in this episode. One, the little push in on the phone where Ben is outside listening to the Howards talk, and he's listening through the cell phone. Love that. And then this shot of going down the list and then pressing send on the call to Trader. That's an insert shot. That's a pickup. We picked that up at another time. Love it. Oh, just powerful.
Yeah, so great. So great. And Jack, talking about when you kicked this off for this scene, you talked about Howard pulling into the parking lot. And you know what I noticed last night? And I mean, we set the scene up, so it was done by design, but I guess it was. I don't know, Dave, you correct me on this if not, but what I picked up last night is when Howard pulls in the parking lot, you notice all the vehicles are backed in, what we call a combat part, right? So you can get out quick. He pulls nose in, and dang
it, I didn't notice that. That's my thing.
Yeah, exactly. When we park, we reverse in, right? Always. It's just a habit that doesn't leave us, and I noticed that last night. I'm like, oh, he pulled in. He knew there was never a reason he was going to be getting out of there fast. He's not coming back. And that hit me last night. I just thought that was so well done. And I don't remember, Dave, on the day. I don't remember that. I don't, I would like to say I knew that was set up like that.
Or a happy accident. There's plenty of happy accidents.
Yeah, whatever it was, I noticed it yesterday. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's wicked. It's wicked. And that, and that shot, by the way, is, and I can't remember, this is an Evans Brown episode, but Armando had to do a couple days on it because we were also still filming 106 while we were doing 107. So I can't remember who shot this, but it is, if you've seen the movie The Exorcist, this shot of Howard getting out and Morecambe behind him, that's actually straight out of The Exorcist. Yeah, just it's a total homage shot. It's just a wicked shot, and it gets very kind of horror with the score at that moment, and it's one of the heaviest scenes, and that was one, Jack, where when I read the book, I was like, oh, we're doing that. We are doing that because you capture all of that with Tedesco in the book. All of that is captured, and man, again, Matt Roush, the breath work, so good in this scene, so good. He's got a little sweat going, just struggling to get the words out. Oh man.
Yeah, and the way Nick plays it, I mean, incredible. And then I love how it transitions. Bam, now we're on Tony in the car, JD, and the explosions in the background, so it's linked. And then the way he looks at the house could be remote detonation. Boom, and he knows. Yeah, and he knows. And throwing on the body armor as he's going across the street and heading in, and the Reese's shadow on the inside, and then make an entry, and then a little bit of a scuffle. I love this part.
Love it.
I love this part. And I got to say, Dave, you were right. You were 100% right, because I
wanted
to end this episode a different way.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm kind of jumping the gun because I love this episode. I loved it, and this scene. I loved it so much that I wanted this episode to end
right there.
Yeah, stay off my list. It has to end right there. It's perfect.
Yeah.
Why do we have to have Katie and Hartley get together at the end?
Yeah.
Can we do that earlier or something? And you're like, nope, it has to. And you explained it to me why. But I pushed on it a couple more times. But now when I watched it last night, I'm like, I can't imagine how we ended it the way I wanted to. It is so much better with Hartley and with Katie in the library. It's so much better that way. And I was thinking about what you told me, and you were exactly right. Why it had to be that way, and you were totally
and
100% right.
That I think was John Schumacher who had the notion, because we had written it earlier, and it broke up the flow of that final run. And I think it was John who suggested we put it as a kind of post-credit scene. And but the reason, to let the audience in on our conversation, you're not wrong. You're right. Like, for the episode itself, really would be great to just end right there. But when you have a whole season of TV, that's why you got to have that Hartley Katie cliffhanger, because it's a season and it's pulling you into that finale.
Pulls you into the next episode. No, it's so great. It's so great the way it was done. So glad you didn't listen to me on that one.
I was with you with Jack on that. I was the same way. I'm like, no, it's got to end right there. And funny enough, last night for me as well, watching it again, I felt the power of Dave, the way you set it up like that. I'm like, gosh, dog it, he's right again.
Yeah, it's the season though. But again, you guys are 100% right. In the episode, boom, that's the end. But because you're telling that full season and you're getting to the finale, you need that real cliffhanger on the character level that pulls you into it.
So good. But I love the scuffle in the house. And now we have Reece and we have JD right there as Tony. Reece has him at gunpoint. We had the I am justice line. Amazing. And then follow it up with stay off my list. I mean, in the same scene.
I do want to say this is a qualifier. We wrote this and shot it before the Batman came out. So I Am Justice was not in another major show or movie.
Oh, before. I didn't realize.
We had that.
I didn't realize that it was in there.
We own that.
We own it.
Yeah.
I've not seen the new Batman yet. Now I'm gonna have to. Watch it. Oh man,
it's one of those moments you're like, no.
Yeah.
Dang it. Yeah. Interesting. What did you think when you saw that? Oh my God.
Well, we were locked. We were done. We were delivered. And it's kind of thing. It's a huge movie. All this stuff. And when you see your line taken by another movie, your instinct is, well, we have to cut it out, but you can't. You just can't at this point. It lives in it. And here's why it lives, because Chris crushes it. And it sets up the final line of stay off my list. Right? Mm-hmm. Which is really like, your justice is not my justice. My justice is righteous. Right? That's what he's saying to Tony in that moment. It's a big moment between those two actors. And and again, our boy up here crushes that.
Yep. No, it's amazing. I love this episode, and now I love how it ends. And it draws you into that next one. You're still like, as a viewer, like, oh, is Hartley good or bad here? And is this what do we got going on? So yeah, you guys crushed this, so thank you.
And the last thing that I want to hit on, as far as with the Pillar Howard kill scene explosion, Dave, it was actually Max Adams who came up with the idea of the Claymore.
Oh,
like, dude, what if we strapped a Claymore? Yeah, so that, once again, Max Adams. And then we started breaking down how to do it. But Dave, do you remember what ended up being so cool about the Claymores, other than, I mean, you always kind of wonder what Claymores would do to somebody if you did that, but is the camera coming in on tight of front towards enemy.
Yep.
Yeah,
there.
and that's huge.
Yep.
On multiple levels. You have what the Claymore is intended for. But then you're clearly showing who the enemy is. And it's just that was just a cool, powerful moment with those three words, on that Claymore. And so it was so important to have that position when we built out the vest to where the camera could come in tight and capture those words right before it went high order.
Yeah.
Really cool.
Yep.
Man, what an episode. I mean, I don't even know what else we can say about that one, because it's it's hard to choose a favorite, but this certainly, Dave, as you said, having this be the one that you want to write if you're a writer leading into the final episode. I can see it. It's such a fun episode. It's so powerful. Everybody's top of their game. They're developed. The characters are developed now through these now 7 hours or 6 just prior, and now they get to kind of exploit all that buildup of character development to this final scene for some of them, because they're going into the ground, and Reece is off to finish that list.
That's right.
Amazing.
Great stuff.
Awesome. Then what else about this scene? Anything? Any other music stuff in this one? I forget exactly if we had any other anything else.
No, I think we hit on it. I mean, this is a big episode in terms of score. Just phenomenal work. We kind of talked about it as our most kind of horror-esque score as we got through it. Scott Turner, our editor, did an incredible job with this one as well, big time. And he kind of like helped, along with Fred, craft this kind of like patient push. And the camera is kind of always just a little more paranoid in its point of view than we've had before. So without a doubt, our most psychological episode of the season. And a big thank you to our cast, because, dude, this is one where everybody, had monster scenes and rose to the occasion.
Yeah. And I was with a Delta Force buddy this past weekend, and we went to dinner. And what does he do? Combat parks. In a Toyota Tacoma, and he loved it. He loved it.
So great to hear.
And I'm getting so many texts from people like that have done more than most will ever know. I mean, there's those guys.
That means the world,
because they can put themselves in these shoes. And it's not some fantastical ballet type of fight sequences, and it's not CGI craziness that's obviously not real but still visually appealing. It's gritty, and it's raw, and it's dark, with just like going down range and just like doing the job. So these guys all I think can sense that it was important to us, and if they know me, then they know it was important to me. So it's I love getting that feedback, especially from a couple of those commands.
That's the best
text and
best compliment we can get right there. Is that the best compliment is coming from operators, because as we all know, Dave, you know it now. Like their operators are not the easiest.
They're not easy.
Please,
easy to please.
And especially in this space, So when you have combat hardened dudes reaching out and saying, "Hey, job well done. You guys did well." That to me, that's about the highest praise we can get.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Not one of them has said it was a little too violent, a little too dark, a little uneasy with the scene. Zero of those. The zero feedback like that from your operators.
Cool.
So
I love it.
Yep. Oh man. Well, let's move on to the final episode.
Finale.
Let's go to 8. Man, thank you guys so much for doing this. I can't thank you enough for taking the time and for spending the last 2 years, developing and filming and into post-production and everything else. So thank you guys again. And I almost want to just keep Well, hopefully we do keep going and we can do another one of these for the next season. You know, we'll see.
Absolutely.
We'll see. And everybody else out there, thank you for listening to the Terminal List podcast, an Ironclad original brought to you by Casey Cattle Company. If you like the show, be sure to leave a 5-star rating and review. You can follow David DiGilio at DiGilio Films on Instagram. Of course, Jared Shaw is not on Instagram or the social channels, but you can find him right here on the Terminal List podcast. And if you go to the bottom of your screen on Amazon, and you can click over on all those little bubbles of people, Jared's in there. So be sure and do that. You can follow me at Jack Carr USA on the show's socials. Officialjackcarr.com is the website. And we'll see you in the next episode.